Hey guys, I hope you are all having a great week. It is time for another One Warrior podcast, and we have a lot of people that requested this one. In fact, this almost won last week when I did a vote on Instagram to find, I had two topics last week and I had you guys choose. Came out to be an equal 50-50 split. And we did last week, budgeting and budgeting for a bodybuilder and also a little life tips. And I got great response from you guys. You guys loved that one. You guys said you learned a lot of different things. You said you liked my investing advice too and would like to hear more about that and building wealth and stuff. And that's awesome. I would love to talk about that more. As being, a warrior, that all is encompassed into it, not just fitness, but life, finances, just building the warrior lifestyle. So maybe another time we'll get into that again. But so today is the next one, the next top requested one, and very requested. I put on yesterday on Instagram a question and answer to go through with the topic of this podcast, and tons of questions came in. We're going to be getting to those questions in this podcast as well. I do want to warn you again, this might be another long podcast, so get comfortable if you're at work, chill. Just listen to me, and hopefully this makes your day go by faster. But we're going to get right into this. So today we're talking about how to break through a plateau and what a plateau consists of and different methods you can use and what's the truth behind plateaus, because a lot of people have them confused. So right off the bat, you know how I like to do this. We break up the who, what, where, when, and why charts, because you can't do in research or talk about research without explaining the who, what, where, when, and why. So the who, this applies to lifters or anybody stuck into a certain something. That's what a plateau is. What, we're talking about plateaus. The stop of progress over time. This happens to everybody, whether it's in fitness or in life. This can just happen. And maybe we'll cover life plateaus too today. We'll have to see. Next one's where. This happens in your fitness journey mainly. This is where it's talked about most. When. This happens 1 to 5 years into lifting. And why? Boredom, no patience, no why, driving force. Not enjoying the journey anymore, nutrition is off, genetics, etc., training is off. Something is causing it, and it usually relates more often than not to just being bored with training. But we will get to that. So that brings me to the thing I need to talk about next. And there are two types of plateaus that you guys have to understand. There is called mini plateaus, and there is called a true plateau. Now, what is a mini plateau? Let's just talk about a mini plateau, because right off the bat, you guys have to understand this. A mini plateau is what most lifters fall into. Mini plateaus are very popular between 1 to 5 years of training, or I'll say even 1 to 3 years of training. It is a phase where your training is off. And this happens, like I said, right around your 1 to 3 years in training. This very rarely a mini plateau happens later on. It does happen, but this mainly is a psychological thing, as you will soon find out. So how do you know if you're stuck in a mini plateau? Well, the first one is you feel like you're not making progress, but your friends think you're getting jacked. I see this so many times with lifters that are they're in their 1 to 3 years lifting. They are making so much progress. And me as a guy that I've trained 16 years, I can see this in people. And I can see the progress they're making. And I can see other people telling them, they're looking jacked. They're looking like they're on steroids. And the person themselves, they feel like they're not even any bigger. They're like, why are you saying this? I'm not even jacked. I'm not even big. And the reason these people say this is because they have no idea. They have no idea. These new lifters have no idea what this journey consists of. And this journey of being natural consists of. I mean, we're talking about being natural today. If you want to blow past any plateau, get on steroids. But if you want to know all the bad reasons why I discount steroids, listen to my testosterone podcast. To blow past a plateau, it is so much more than just getting on something. But all these young people nowadays think so high of steroids, and they think. And it's for many reasons, like we'll get into today, but it's they get attracted to what they see on social media. And most people don't, if you don't realize this, most fitness models, and trust me, I came from the fitness modeling background. I was growing up and on Instagram at the time when Gymshark was exploding. I know all the secrets to all their pictures. It's all lighting. It's all, they're super dieted down to look ripped and jacked. When you're super ripped and jacked, you look bigger than when you're heavier. It's an illusion. They're all illusions. These social media models, they're illusions. They don't look like that 24/7. Take Jason Momoa, for example. Jason Momoa cut down extremely super lean and jacked for his role in Aquaman. And then a few months later, there were pictures of him on the beach with his wife, and people could not believe. They said he let himself go. And they did an interview on him, and Jason Momoa said, well, I'm not going to look like that year round. It's ridiculous. I felt like crap. I might have looked like a Greek god, but I felt like crap. I couldn't do nothing. My energy levels sucked. That we don't live like that 24/7. He said this in an interview, and people were kind of flabbergasted, like, oh, this is not something people maintain. And this is the same thing for fitness models as well. Most people, and I don't know if I've covered this on podcasts before, but those photos you're seeing on Instagram were all taken at one time. I know this because I was in the air when Instagram first blew up. And what people would do is they would schedule 1 to 2 photo shoots every year. And they would get extremely lean and jacked for those photo shoots, looking ridiculous. And then they would go get pictures taken in all sorts of places for about a week or about 2 weeks. In different places. They would pay money to go get pictures taken. And then they would use those pictures and post it throughout the year, making them look like they're that lean and jacked all year round. It's absolutely insane what these fitness models and these higher up fitness elites do. Now, there are people, that compete in bodybuilding and whatnot, and they just look great all the time. But most of them, like I've said, are on steroids. They may not admit to it, but if you look like you're crazy, this insane physique, and it's way above everybody else's, chances are they are on steroids. There are so many people, especially in physique and everything nowadays, that are just taking off on social media, that people think they are natural. They are not natural. I guarantee it. I have been in this industry for almost 20 years now. This is my 16th year. I have seen so much shit. I know exactly how all this stuff works, and you cannot be fooled by it. And I know I'm getting off on topic here, but I wanted to make sure and cover that because I hear so many people just constantly talk about social media people. So the first one, like I said, you feel like you're not making progress, but your friends say you are getting jacked. This is a sign that you are stuck in a mini plateau. It means your psychology feels like you're not improving, but your friends see like, oh my gosh, this guy is making crazy progress. The next one is you are losing motivation to train. This happens usually when, people in 1 to 3 years train way too much. They never take off days. They train, 6, maybe even 7 days a week. They are just constantly in the gym. What happens when you do something too much? This happens for anything in life. This is basic psychological. This is just basic psychology right here. If you do something too much, anything, you will lose motivation to do it. That is why I have switched my mentality on training to only, 4 or 5 days a week, and taking, a good 2 to 3 days every week to rest and totally do something else. Because when you come back to the gym, I myself train Monday through Friday, and I take the weekends completely off. I do other stuff. I don't even think about fitness. And then Monday, when it's time to go back to the gym, I'm ready to kill shit. I'm ready to go hard for another 5 days. And it raises my motivation. When people say they're losing motivation to train, they're doing training too often. They need to take time off. The next one is you are constantly looking up Instagram fitness people and seeing what split they are using. This kind of goes into what I already talked about. But if you are in a mini plateau, and I know from me, I'm thinking back to my earlier years in fitness, 1 to 5 years of training, I would get into phases where I'm like, I don't know if I'm making progress. And I constantly go to different fitness Instagram people and I look up go to Google then and search up their routines and see, oh, they're doing this and this. Maybe I should do this and this. And it was a constant me thinking my routine was not going to accomplish what I wanted, and I was falling into what other people were doing, and I constantly was making that mistake of, this person is doing this, I should be doing this, they look like this, I need to be doing this, and basing training programs off of other people doing things, or maybe, stars that I was following, huge people up and following exactly what they were doing. That's something that's, is very usual and usually happens when people are stuck in a mini plateau. The next thing is you contemplate switching programs all the time. So this goes hand in hand. This was something I fell into for a long time. I would do 6 to 7 months on a program and then be like, okay, I got to switch my program up, switch my split up. And I would constantly do that all the time. And I think that really halts progress when you're constantly switching programs all the time. Stick with the program, for a good year at least, and just follow it through and give it the time to work. When you're a natural athlete, when you're a natural bodybuilder, it takes time to build muscle. You can't build muscle. You can't just build a ton of muscle in 6-7 months. We're talking years to make progress. And this is something that you just need to do. Also, along with this is constantly switching up your calories. You get to a phase where you think, oh, I'm putting on too much fat, I've got to cut back. These constant, mini cuts, they are killing your progress. It wasn't until I learned how to just stay in a big calorie surplus for a long time and just wear more covering up clothes and then build muscle and then later on lean down. It wasn't until I started doing that I started really noticing progress. And what I recommend with that is in the winter, you cover up. Try to just wear more clothes just naturally, and it will help psychologically allow you to eat more, to train harder, to train heavier, because you're not seeing yourself think you're getting out of shape, because it's all psychology. It's all mental. You get to a place when you're in a bulking phase where you see a little body fat build up and your abs start slowly disappearing and you're like, shit, I'm getting fat. I got to back off on the calories. But your body is loving it. Your testosterone's going through the roof. Your sex drive is going through the roof. Your body is loving this extra little weight you're putting on, and you're able to train harder, but your mentalness is like, oh, I got to lean back down again. I can't be like this. And I see this happen to a lot of people that just constantly wear, not very much in the gym, cutoffs or shorts or anything like that. When they're training, they notice they're more fat, and then that demotivates them. My advice is, when it becomes the winter months, start to go into a hibernation phase, start to eat more, start to wear long sleeve shirts, start to cover up, and focus on that training. Make your training sessions hard. Work on making progress. And don't worry about being so super lean. If there's one thing I tell so many people that I would have done differently, is I would have done major bulking cycles, with maybe leaning out through the summer or whatnot, but I would have done so much more regular, just bulking cycles without mini cuts and whatnot, to just build up more overall mass. Because here is something that runs true always, and that is, if you are a bigger person and you get in shape, you look ridiculous later on when you're in shape. But what happens to the skinny person that constantly tries to be skinny and lift weights? They barely make any progress. They barely get stronger. They barely build muscle. This is the phase I fell into for so long in my life before I realized the power of just covering up, eating more food, not really caring about putting on a little bit of fat here and there. Don't get ridiculous and get overweight in your bulking season. Still keep it appropriate, but don't worry about, a little bit of fat gain here and there. Allow some fat gain. Your testosterone levels will thank you. Your sex drive will thank you. You'll start just feeling awesome. Your energy levels will go up. This all happens when you just get into a nice calorie surplus. This is something that I wanted to make sure and cover here, because that can instantly break a plateau. Getting into a phase where you just cover up for the winter, start wearing longer sleeve shirts and sweatshirts, eat more food, allow your body to recover, train harder. It is just an amazing feeling. Then when you lean down the next year and you're like, oh shit, dude, I put on a shit ton of muscle. This is great. And some people will say, oh, bulking cycles, they shouldn't be done because they're not needed and whatnot. I think they're needed. I think if you are a hard gainer, especially if you are naturally skinny, naturally want to get bigger, I think you just need to go on phases where you eat more food. Just do it. This is something that you just need to do and witness for yourself, because when I started doing that, it was just night and day difference. My pictures, my back blew up. I mean, my shoulders blew up. It was night and day difference from my pictures from now to like 5-6 years ago. It's crazy how much I've changed since I've gone into just phases where I just don't care and I eat more food. I cover up, don't let my psychology mess with me, and just do that. And it'll blow your mind. It truly will. The next one is you're not enjoying the journey. I see so many people constantly being so hard on themselves, saying, "Oh, I'm just not making progress. I'm not enjoying my training," or they're just constantly depressed, even though they look phenomenal. They look freaking fantastic. And it's like, think about it this way: when you get the physique that you want, guess what? What are you gonna do? Are you just gonna that be it? No, you're gonna want more. We live in our psychology always wants more. We always want more, especially when it's a good thing. We want more of it, always. That is how our minds work. There is never a point where you're going to be like, I look fantastic, I am done. That is not going to happen. It's the same with making money. There's never a point where you make so much money and you're like, I've made so much money, I am done. I mean, we should get to a point like that, but greed, our psychology, it will always overtake us and always want more. You need to enjoy the journey. One of the things that I really did right in my journey was I enjoyed the journey. I found love for training. I found love for fitness. I look forward to my workouts every single day that I train. I look forward to my training because I love the journey. I love the grind. I love the just going at it, putting your headphones in and just going toward your goals and trying to work toward your goals. I love that journey. I love the grind. And you need to find your love for the grind. You need to find your love for that journey to keep you coming back day after day, week after week, month after year after year, so your years start to build up. Because when you find that you finally are enjoying the journey, your physique just can transform so much over time. 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 years. In 4 years, I'll be at my 20th year in this. And I'm hoping, to have made more progress, maybe, hopefully. But either way, even if I don't, though, I love the journey. It's just the training. And if you're not enjoying it, you're doing something wrong. You're either doing training that you don't truly like, or you're just pushing through and doing the motions, or you're just constantly, looking at what other people are doing and their progress and not enjoying your own. It is your journey. It's your life on this earth, and you have to find that you have to have a journey that you're enjoying going through. Otherwise, you're going to quit the journey. It's as easy as that. The last one in this little section is you keep thinking about steroids. People in their and it's funny, I hear more people in their 1 to 3 years of training talk about steroids than I do in their 5 to 10 years talk about training steroids. Why is that? Why is it that the beginners, the 1 to 3 years, talk about steroids so much more than the people that have been training 5 to 10 years? You would think people that have been training 5 to 10 years would be talking way more about steroids because they're more at their genetic potential. But it's not. It's the 1 to 3 years. This is all because we live in a society that wants everything now. And yes, if you get on steroids, if you get on TRT, you will put on 20, 50, 60, 70 pounds of almost pure muscle with hard, consistent training in less than a year. It's crazy what people can do on steroids. It's absolutely insane. And that's up to you. If you want to get on steroids and do that, fine. But you're risking a lot in your life by doing that. You can listen to last week's podcast. I talk all about the disadvantages and the bad things about TRT. I'm not going to go into that today. But it is so ridiculous. People that train 1 to 3 years haven't even tapped their genetic potential. Haven't even come across 25% of their genetic potential yet. They think about getting on steroids. It's absolutely freaking crazy. Why would you do that? In 4 years, I'll be doing this for 20 years. I not one time considered getting on TRT or steroids. I was told about it, to do it back, if you listen to the testosterone podcast, that whole thing. But I never once considered it. Never once. 15 years, 12 years, never once considered it because I want to keep my body natural. I don't want to look ridiculous or anything because that's not the way God intended me to look, obviously. If God intended me to look that way, he would have put that in my genetic potential. And I don't want to make this a religious debate here, but this is just something that to me just seemed asinine. It was like, oh, just take the easy way out. And people think too, if you get on steroids, it's just taking the super easy way out. And you are making it a lot easier for yourself, but you can't just get on steroids and expect gains. You still have to train hard. That's why I still have respect for people that I know that are on steroids. I know plenty of people using steroids, and they have great physiques, and they make great progress, and they're good friends of mine. But that was their choice. I really just want to make sure that people that are in there 1 to 3 years at least don't even think about steroids until you've trained 7 to 10 years. After 7 to 10 years, you do what you want. You've pretty much, you've tapped a lot of your genetic potential by 7 to 10 years. You probably tapped about 85%, maybe even 90% by how good your genetics are by that point. 7 to 10 years, somewhere in there. That's fine. If you want to get on steroids at that point, fine, do it. You do you. But if you've only trained 1 to 5 years, don't even mention steroids. Don't even do anything considering steroids because you're just ruining everything. You're ruining the journey. You're ruining what you could just achieve naturally. I want you guys to look up the guy Mike O'Hearn. I follow a lot of his methods. I have followed him for over 10 years. And the guy says he's natural. And I say he's natural too because he has no reason to lie. We live in a time you have no reason to lie if you're on steroids. Everybody uses them basically. Mike O'Hearn has shown his drug test over and over. He is completely natural. He has trained over 42 years consistently. And he looks amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. I have learned so many things from this guy. And he looks phenomenal. He's super strong. He's probably the strongest person over 50 years old now that in the world probably. He's probably one of the strongest. He can do crazy ass shit. He can let's see here. His incline bench press. His incline press is close to 500 pounds for being over 50. He's been doing this for over 42 years. And there's so many people that accuse him on steroids, but he has videos of him training back in, the 80s and whatnot. And he looked phenomenal even back then. He's made so much progress still up to this day. But one thing you can see in all his videos, and you can even look at other training partners that he had trained with and whatnot. Stan Efferding mentions this about Mike O'Hearn. There's some kind of a debate, between them, like if they're friends or not. But even Stan Efferding has said about Mike O'Hearn, if there's one guy that knows how to work, it's Mike O'Hearn. He would come into the gym at 4 a.m. on a Monday. Find a little corner to himself, no training partners, and he would be squatting over 5 plates for reps. And he would be staying to himself, being humble, and he built his physique all through the years by just staying consistent, enjoying the journey. And he's been doing this 42 years now. He might even be 43 years now. But anyway, it's over freaking 40 years. And he's never done steroids. He's all about being natural. He talks about this, and I believe him. You can say what you want. You can say he's on steroids. I'm on the side he's natural because he knows the definition of hard work. He knows the definition of enjoying the journey. He knows the definition of getting on bulking cycles and also cycles of leaning down at times because he does a lot of movie roles and a lot of modeling. But he knows the benefits of being patient in a journey and not trying to rush things. And that is why he is one of the best role models in the fitness industry to follow, because he is one that you think takes steroids. But if you look back, he's been doing this shit for 42 years, training his ass off and never looking back. In fact, he just had a kid a few years ago. He didn't get married until just a few years ago, and he's in his 50s. He spent that time building his business, building his his foundation, enjoying the journey, building a great physique, building businesses along that, getting into real estate, building a financial just system that would sustain his life forever for now. And he did that by just enjoying the journey, staying patient, not worrying about what other people are doing. Mike O'Hearn never, ever talks about, oh, this person is doing this and this. He does everything himself. He creates everything himself. He does all his training programs. And it's why he's one of the best role models in the fitness industry that everybody should follow. Because Mike O'Hearn knows his shit. He knows what he's doing. And he has the one warrior mentality that I talk about. So, what can cause a mini plateau? These happen to everyone. These happen from people 1 year into training and 10 years into training, but they more often than not happen to the people that are 1 to 5 years into training. It's because it's a psychological reason for the most part. But these can happen for many reasons. Loss of motivation while training, not eating enough food or eating too much food, not taking long enough rest times. This not taking long enough rest times is something that I was guilty of for the longest time. And one way how I broke that is I started training with more people. So I was forced to take more rest times. When I took longer rest times between sets, I found I was able to push harder. I didn't have to do as many exercises. I could just, instead of doing like 7 exercises for the day, I did, 4 or 5, but I just did more sets and I built up and got stronger. Increasing your rest time is very, very beneficial. I highly recommend trying that if you don't. I mean, I tell people, rest as long as you need. I don't use a clock or anything. For most movements, I rest about, 90 seconds. But for presses, I rest 3 minutes. For squats, I rest 4 to 5 minutes between sets. Too many people rest a minute. And a minute is not enough. Even 90 seconds is very quick. 90 seconds is a really good one for, if you're training like, let's see here, more isolation movements and whatnot. But if you're training, for instance, back and you're only resting, a minute between sets, you're gonna cut your back workout in half what you could have done if you just would have rested 2 minutes. 90 seconds, somewhere in there, at least more than a minute. Don't rest a minute. At least rest 90 seconds, preferably 2 minutes. And between big movements, compounds, presses, squats, deadlifts, take 3 to 5 minutes rest. You need that extra time. You can push harder. And it will blow past any plateaus, too, that you're stuck in. Training too often. And I've talked about this many times. Just training too often. Or maybe even training a muscle too often, too, this could apply to. Let's say you're training chest 3 times a week and you've plateaued. Back that off to 2 times or even 1 time for a while and resensitize your volume. This is something I haven't talked about much, but once you're building volume is the number 1 contributor to muscle growth over time. This is reps times sets times weight lifted. That equals your total volume. Now, if you split that volume through a week, that's your frequency. Say your bench volume is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's your bench frequency then. So when your bench volume is going up, let's say you hit a plateau. That should call for a sign of desensitization. You want to desensitize yourself to volume at that point. And that's where, a deload week would come in, or deload month even for that matter, could be very beneficial, where you would back off bench from maybe 3 times a week to 1 time a week, or from 2 times a week to 1 time a week, or maybe even take off bench altogether and focus on other movements. Try to just hypertrophy the chest and other movements. Messing with frequency can really blow past a plateau if you're doing something too often or your volume's too high on something. Back off of it, because you might be amazed by backing off of it some and then coming back to it later on. You can find a re-drive to push harder forward and continue to progress. Let's see here. Never backing off. This is kind of what I just said. Never backing off your training. Never, just taking deload time to resensitize yourself, doing low volume phases for a while. If you're never doing that, you're going to run into a plateau eventually. I personally try to schedule a deload I don't really schedule deloads. I take deloads when I need them because I train a lot different than I used to. if you are training a muscle, say for instance, if you are doing a push-pull leg split, that means you're hitting every muscle 2 times a week. If you're doing that, I would recommend having scheduled deloads. If you're training something like I do though, I train every muscle 1 time a week just because I'm kind of in a phase in my life where I'm not trying to make crazy progress. I'm already real happy with my physique. If I make gains here and there, great. If not, like I said, I'm real happy with my physique the way it looks. So for me, it's like a maintenance phase. So for me, like I said, I train most muscles just 1 time a week nowadays, just so I can focus on other things in my life and still enjoy my training. And it's just kind of like a desensitization phase in my life. Not to say I'll never go back to 2 times a week on stuff. Maybe I will go to a push-pull legs eventually again if I ever feel that drive to want to push like that again. But for the most part, there's a benefit to backing off of your training every now and then. And like I said, I have been on this same split that I've been doing now since when I lost my job at the Bryan Times, which would have been 2018, because that's when I went off on my own to do my own shit. And I just needed to go on something a little easier to manage. And when you're training everything 2 times a week, that gets a little hectic. Because you have to really be concentrated on that. Make sure you're scheduling out things right, making sure not both of those days are heavy days or both of those days are hypertrophy days. When you're training things more often in a week than 1 time, you really have to have a strategic approach to that. And for me in my life, I wanted to just go to an easier lifestyle with training, which was just train everything once a week. Chest Mondays, Tuesday legs, Wednesday shoulders and arms, Thursday back day, Friday arms, and then Saturday and Sunday off. And that split's been working great for me. I've actually been making great progress on it, and it's not even very stressful to do. It's very easy to follow. Boredom is the next one. If you're bored in your training, you're gonna hit a mini plateau. Boredom is is probably the root cause. And it's probably the root cause, too, in my history where I fell into these mini plateaus. Just not switching it up and not having fun with my training, causing a boredom. If you're having bored in your training, if you're going through your training and you know exactly what you're going to run into, well, that's going to cause boredom. That's one reason why I never do the same workout. Every Monday is chest day, but it's always a different chest day. It's always different. People who train with me know this. It's always different. And maybe that's not the best for strength progress, because if you're trying to get stronger at motions, you want to do them more frequently. But if you're just trying to build muscle, you can constantly mix it up. There was actually research done on this to show that the movements you did in the gym don't matter nearly as much as just the volume that you do. So meaning that the people that progressed on bench press and got stronger and stronger, and then the people that didn't do bench press and did a different chest exercise every day or every chest day, they built just as much muscle as the people that were constantly getting stronger on bench press. So it's pretty interesting. When you're training for hypertrophy, it's a completely different approach than strength. For strength, you have to do the movement you're trying to get stronger at, and you have to keep doing it every week over time. There's no exception to that unless you're on a deload phase or a back off phase, but you have to be doing that phase frequently. Doing something often, you get good at it. It's a basic rule of life. But for building muscle, though, your body doesn't know the difference between a bench press and a incline a landmine press. If the chest is flexing over time, it's going to grow. That's a pretty cool thing to think about. You don't need to be doing the same motions over and over if you're just trying to grow and you're just trying to put on muscle. And that can actually blow past plateaus for people that are in states of boredom and whatnot. And the last one on this little list here is not having patience. Not having patience is another root cause, because you have to understand that gains when you're natural happen in long increments of time. There's not just a time where you're going to train a couple years and be like, oh, this is great. I'm making so much progress and it's great. Things will take so much longer being natural. And that's just what you have to do to be a natural athlete, is you have to have patience. So many people fall out from being impatient. We live in a society, like I've said, that wants everything now. We want $1 million now. We want 6-pack abs now. It's my money and I need it now. Remember that commercial? It's literally how people think in this day and age. Everybody wants everything now. And not having patience can literally cause a mini plateau, because you just get fed up with your training. You get fed up with yourself. You get depressed. Patience is so important to have in life with everything. Work on building patience if you don't have patience, because if you're young and you don't have patience, your life is going to be a living hell. If there's one thing I've learned in my life, learn how to have patience. The ones who wait will always be rewarded. Remember those words. All right, so now we get to the phase of how to get out of a mini plateau. Remember, we're still talking about mini plateaus. We haven't even covered true plateaus yet. So how to get out of a mini plateau. The first thing on this list is try new music while training. You would not believe how often people just get into the same routine of the same music over and over and over again. In my life, when I used to powerlift, this is something I used to make sure and change up because I had read research showing how powerful music could be to a person's 1 rep max. There was actually studies that shown that having really powerful adrenaline music on can actually increase the weight lifted by over 50%. That's insane. That's insane. The numbers were actually 25 to 50%, but some people had a 50% increase in the research when music was just super high adrenaline. You ever hear a song that just gives you chills and just makes you feel like you can walk through a wall? That is how you want your training playlist to be. And that is something that you need to change over time too, because your brain, your adrenal glands is attached to what listens to music. Your adrenal glands are all tied in to when a good song plays, your adrenaline glands fire. This all is tied into your adrenal glands. So, and what have I talked about before? Your adrenal glands, they adapt. Caffeine, for instance, is an adrenal thing. It raises your adrenaline over time, but your adrenals build up. If you're taking 600 milligrams of caffeine always, your adrenal glands get used to it, and you can't produce the amount of adrenaline as you did when you first got on 600 milligrams. You're going to have to up it to 700. That's why you have to be careful with caffeine. Always stay pretty low with caffeine to not get a buildup to it. I only use coffee for that matter. The same thing is for music. If you have a song that really amps you up, that song is not always going to amp you up. You'll know this too, because I have songs in the past that just totally took me out of my body, out of my body experience while lifting at one time. And it just transformed my training. And now if I listen to those songs, they don't do nearly that. It's because my adrenals got used to hearing that song so much. So actually a trick that I used when I powerlifted, I had a set playlist called Amp Up Tunes. And I only used that playlist when I was going into the hardest lifts of the day. And for the rest of my lifts, I went into just a regular playlist that I had. I literally had a separate playlist that had the most killer music that gave me chills, that raised my adrenaline, that made me feel like I could just walk through walls. And I only used it for the sets that I needed to go hardest on. And it worked. It was pretty phenomenal. I don't do that anymore because I don't powerlift. But if you're a powerlifter, you can really, really benefit from that. But remember though, don't get too attached to the music though, because if you're a powerlifter, when you compete, you can't listen to music when you compete. So you should be able to lift close to the same weight that you don't, but we all have those training sessions. I remember when I used to powerlift, when you had to squat, over 30,000 pounds of volume in a week, you needed a lot of music to amp you up to do that. And I remember I had to have some just awesome playlists to push myself through that. And it helped a ton. I was able to push through some of the most brutal squat sessions ever when I used to do powerlifting and shit with the right music. And it's something to remember. And it happens too just for a mini plateau. If you're in the gym and you're just constantly listening to the same music over and over in time, your adrenal glands are just built up to that stimulus. Change up the stimulus. Take the weekend to get on Spotify and look up new artists and or use the Discover playlist. The Discover playlist on Spotify works fantastic. I think Apple Music has a similar feature too, but just look for new music. Always try to be adding new music. I probably every couple weeks get on my Discover playlist and release Radar and try to add new things to it. Just because I know the benefits of mixing up the music. Still the same, you can listen to the same types of music you like, but just add new music, try different things and make it unique, because when your training gets new music, you get new stimulus, your adrenal glands are starting to reproduce more levels of adrenaline, your workouts take off, your progress builds up, and that can blow you out of a mini plateau. The next one is take progress pictures and figure out your weaknesses. So this is something that I really found helped after my 5 to 7 years of training. After 5 to 7 years, I really found that taking progress pictures one time every probably, let's say I take progress pictures nowadays every like 3 years. But back then I would take them probably once a year. The longer you train, the less frequent you have to take them. Right now, I like I said, I haven't taken pictures since 2019 or something like that. Or no, I actually did take them. I took them during quarantine, actually, 2020. So yeah, I did. So the next time I take pictures probably won't be till 2025, 2024, somewhere in there. But when you're just getting when you're just getting started though, 1 to 5 years, I'll say, make sure and take progress pictures one time at least every year. And even maybe a little less too, because you're still going to be making crazy progress in the 1 to 5 years. You're going to still be getting those beginner gains. Beginner gains last a good, 3 years. After 3 years, they start to really slow down. But those first, 1 to 3 years, beginner gains are absolutely insane. Everybody wishes they could go back to beginner gains because they were just absolutely crazy. But just start taking progress pictures and then figure out your weaknesses. So nowadays, for me, people ask me what motivates me to train. And besides the fact I just love training, I can look back at my 5 years ago progress pictures and be like, oh, I want my lower lats to be more improved. Or, oh, my upper chest is a little bit laggy. I need to focus more on that. When I started editing my training to what I needed, then everything just started becoming a system because I had looked at these pictures and I knew, okay, I needed to improve this and this. Or for example, my shoulders, my side delts. In 2020, I noticed how I really wanted to add just more mass to my side delts. So I've started doing tons and tons of different side laterals for the past year and a half. And already my shoulders have just improved dramatically. It's crazy how much they've improved. But it was a weakness, and when I found that weakness I had, I was remotivated. I was remotivated to go after it because the body likes challenge. The mind likes challenge. If everything is easy in life, everything is stagnant, you get bored. That's one of the reasons why celebrities in Hollywood, all of them eventually get on drugs and screw their life up because they get to a point where they make so much money, they don't need to do anything, and they're bored, and then they decide to get on drugs or whatnot because they need a change in their life. And that's one of the reasons why so many people that have made it big in life have screwed themselves. Think of Miley Cyrus, for example. They said she could have been one of the richest women in the world had she not screwed herself up after she worked on Disney. When she was that whole Hannah Montana and thing, people were investing in her because she had such a passion for what she was doing, and she had such a drive, and she was said to be like even almost as wealthy as Taylor Swift if she would have kept up the same route. But instead, though, she got on drugs, shaved her head, went through a whole bunch of shit, went to rehab, screwed her life up. She could have been probably as big as Taylor Swift, but she screwed herself up, and that was because she obviously just didn't have a driving factor that kept her going. There was nothing that she needed to change. There was nothing that she needed to improve on. She just got into this system where everything just fell into place, and it caused her to fall out of place. And the same is with your program. Figuring out your weaknesses. If you figure out your weaknesses, you can be like, I need to improve on this. This will keep me going. And just start tackling your weaknesses head on. Build your programs based upon that. Just like I said, for side laterals, I wanted to improve them. So shoulder days, I started doing lots of side laterals, and I started doing them first too. Something to improve a weakness over time is do it first in your workouts. People think they have to do a set order in their workout. People think they have to do a shoulder press first, and then side laterals, and then front delts, and then rear delts last. Mix it up. Base your training upon what you need. For instance, this week we're starting shoulder day with let's see here. We did presses, we did side laterals last week. So we're going to do rear delts this week. We're going to hit rear delts first in this shoulder workout this week because I know the benefits of mixing shit up. If you've never done flies first in your chest workout, try it. Just a couple weeks ago, I did flies first in my chest workout and did presses last. Now, yes, I couldn't press nearly as much at the end of my workout, but flies, I was doing flies with 60-pound dumbbells, incline dumbbell flies with 60-pound dumbbells. I've never done that in my life. So mixing up your training is very important to target weaknesses. Don't fall into a said scheme of where you have to do squats first and then leg extensions. Maybe mix it up and kill your legs with leg extensions and then do a front squat with close feet together and do it with a lighter weight. Mixing things up is one of the most powerful techniques and tools that you can have in the gym. So, okay, the next one is try new training partners or train solo. If you're training solo all the time, I heard this one time in my life and it stuck with me. When you're trying to be super strong, don't train with people that are weaker than you. Train with people that are stronger than you because they will push you to be stronger. And that is very, very true. And it works really well. If you're always training solo, start training with somebody and make sure they are stronger than you. You will not believe how much improvement you will make. And people that train with me understand this because I hear all the time from people that train with me. They're like, I've never even thought about touching this weight on this exercise. I've never thought about doing upright rows with over 130 pounds. Like, I hear this and they just weren't pushed to do it. They always trained solo, so they didn't know how to push themselves past that limit. And then just a couple weeks with people training with me, people are like, oh, wow, I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe I did this. And they start making crazy progress. And it's just because they started training with somebody that was stronger than them and maybe, and not even just that, but just more time doing this. I know tons of different exercises to hit different muscle groups. And it's just something I've learned over time. But people that train with me know that because they build that knowledge up then and they improve themselves so much. And for me too, I love training with people that are stronger than me. Because it pushes. It's a driving factor to try to compete when you're training. I mean, one of my training partners is so much stronger than me. He obliterates what I can do, but he motivates me to try to progress more. Even though I've been doing it 16 years, I still have a drive to get stronger and try to push harder just because I train with such a variety of people. And if you're training solo all the time, you just don't know the camaraderie there. I know this because before I blew out my disc, before I ever trained at a gym even, I trained at my home gym, bench, squat, deadlift. I have all that stuff here in my basement. And I trained at my home for over 10 years. Just me, solo. And then when I blew out my discs in my back and could no longer power lift, I built a bunch of friends. I built so much friends. And I started training with people and seeing what other people were doing and started having like contests during our training session. And my progress went through the roof. I look back at my old powerlifting pictures and yeah, maybe I was a little bit thicker while I powerlifted and whatnot than I am now since I don't powerlift. But my overall muscle size and density and just muscle maturity has built up so much more than what it was back then when I used to powerlift solo. So if you're always training solo, try training with somebody. You might be amazed with how much it can just change your body itself when you start challenging yourself. The opposite that though is if you're always training with somebody, if you're always training with groups of people, try training solo. There are times where I just love to train solo. I train with a lot of people. Right now my group of guys that I train with is 5 guys. It's 5 people in a workout, and it can get, a little crazy at times, managing 5 people to go through a workout. And there are times when I do miss training solo because I just train by feel all the time. I do. And when my training partners, I know they hate it when they ask, how much sets and reps. I completely train by feel nowadays. I know other people think of, 8 to 12 reps, but for me, I think of it as I'm going to go about till I have 2, maybe 1 or 2 reps left and stop. And maybe I'm going to do a drop set or a rest pause. And when you're training with people, you can't really do that all the time because you have to explain everything and you can't go by feel. When you're solo though, if you want to just do a triple drop set or a triple or a run the rack set just out of nowhere and just blast your muscles with a crazy pump, you can do it. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You can just train by feel. And that's one of the things I miss about training solo is just the fact that you just got to train completely by feel and just go with the motions. I mean, there'd be sometimes when I train solo where I would do 8 sets of an exercise just because it felt right. But I kept going though till it felt wrong. And and people that train with me, it's like, how many sets of this are we doing? It's like, well, I don't know until it doesn't feel right, because that's how I train. I might do 10 sets of leg press, or I might do only 3 sets. I go completely by feel, and that's something I've learned doing this for 16 years is just how to train completely by feel and no longer attach reps or anything to that. I built up a system and it just works, and that's something I do miss not being able to train solo anymore because I train so many people. But I realize though that I would rather put my time and effort to help other people now because I have been gifted this lifestyle by God to pass forward my knowledge. I love what I do for a living, and I know God just doesn't want me to focus on myself. I know He wants me to put others first before me, and that's one of the reasons I train so many people, because I put other people's results before my own nowadays. And it feels really good doing that. I love passing and paying it forward with what I have learned and what I've built over the years, and I'm helping all these younger people build up their physiques in just crazy ways. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that more than I make progress myself nowadays. So that's something that I've just really learned to love, is just helping people build their physiques up. The next one is just stop dieting and just eat. Too many people worry so much about their diet, and they don't just eat. This is something that helped me as well. When I stopped worrying about eating this and making sure I'm getting enough calories, and when I just stopped doing that and just said, you know what, I'm just going to eat the food that I want to eat, I started making crazy progress. I used to always track everything I ate. And I talked about this a few weeks ago in my testosterone podcast, I think. Or no, wait, I talked about it last week, about how I would make sure and track everything I ate in the week prior to what I ate. So, meaning that I would have everything tracked, always. I would always track. I'd always know exactly what I was eating. I always knew exactly how many calories, how much protein, how much fats, how much carbs. If you ask me today how much protein, how much carbs, how much fat I eat, I don't know. I could tell you an estimate. I could tell you I'm probably around 190 grams of protein, probably around 320 grams of carbs, and probably around 100 grams of fat. If I had to guess, that's probably what my macros are right now. But I don't know. And the point is, I totally just eat by feel. I eat a lot of red meat. I eat a lot of whole eggs. I eat a lot of white rice. I drink a lot of milk. Once I stopped worrying about the diet and just ate, it was amazing the progress I made. This is something you can definitely try to get out of a mini plateau. Stop worrying about the calories and just eat food. Just eat food. Try it. You might be amazed. Mix up your program a tad. If you're always doing the same workout, the same program all the time, mix it up. Like I said, mix exercises around. On a chest day, start with flies. On a shoulder day, start with side laterals. On a back day, I don't know, start with pullovers. Mix it up. Just mix up your program a tad. You might be amazed what can come when you mix things up. So with all that, let's discuss, since we did, that was a mini plateau. That is something very easy to break out of. They're mini plateaus. They happen to everybody, but they're pretty easy to get out of. Let's discuss a true plateau. The true plateau. How do you know if you are stuck in a true plateau? Well, these happen after a solid 3 to 5 years of training. So this is not a beginner plateau. A true plateau is something that really you get stuck in, and it is an actual problem. And it's more than just psychology. It's more than just being bored. There's a lot more to a true plateau. So you are no longer getting stronger. That is the number one thing, or well, I'd say it's probably the number one or two thing that will happen in a true plateau. You hit points where you just no longer get any stronger on lifts. And honestly speaking, for my pressing strength, I have been in a true plateau for a long time. And I've just come to the realization that my joints suck at pressing. Because there are times I just can't get over certain weights without my shoulders having pain. I just can't. I've got to a phase where I have figured out I haven't hit my genetic potential for pressing. So for pressing stuff, shoulders and chest for presses, I really could care less about what I press nowadays, just because I feel like I have hit a true plateau that is more than just a plateau. It's more of a genetic. It's more of a joint issue, and I have just hit that point. But no longer getting stronger on something is a sign of a true plateau. You're just not improving on it. No matter how many years you focus on it, you cannot get stronger. You are no longer building muscle or feel like you're not improving at all. So notice how this is different than what the mini plateau was. In a mini plateau, you may no longer feel like you're building muscle, but you're getting compliments all the time about how big you're looking. This is, you are no longer building muscle and you feel like you're not improving at all. you have completely hit a stalling point where you are just not building any more muscle. You are in a point of stagnation, and you just feel like you're just not improving, and you truly can see it. You take pictures, you have evidence. It's not psychology. You just know you're not improving. Your picture, and the next one, your pictures show very little progress. You document everything, but your pictures just show absolutely very little progress. Almost complete loss of motivation to train, not looking forward to the gym. This happens too in a true plateau. You get to a point where you just stop wanting to train because you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, and this is what would have happened to me a long time ago if I just didn't love training. I love training. I love the drive. I love to push. Even if I never change again in my life, even if I never put on another ounce of muscle, I will always still train for 5 days a week as long as I'm alive on this earth because I love doing it so much. If I couldn't train, I'd rather be dead. Like I hear about people that get in accidents where they lose their arms and legs and they can't do much. Honestly, I'd rather just be shot in the head because at that point, what's worth living? Like, I love to train. It is one of the reasons I am on this earth. I don't know why it is, but it is some reason. I have such a drive and I love to train that for me, it is such an important factor to my life. And that's just something I have built up over time, my love for this. But it is, if you're in a true plateau and you don't have that drive, you can fall in a point where you just stop training. And I know people that this has happened to. I know people that used to train all the time, and now you barely ever see them at the gym. Maybe every now and then you do, and you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And you ask them about their life, and they had shit that pops up and everything. When you have such a drive to train, you make it, you always come back to the gym. There was days, I think back in my life, and in the times when my life was falling to shit, when I lost a job that I loved, I still came to the gym and trained because I loved it so much. My life was falling apart. I was running out of money. I had very little money left, very little food left even. I was in such a place of financial loss, but I would still come to the gym every time to train because I needed that. If I didn't, I would have been dead. I don't even want to think what I would have done. But the gym is what keeps me living. It is literally a thing that is so important in my life that gives me life. It gives me motivation to want to keep going. And if you don't have that motivation to train like that, you can easily fall off the wagon. And a true plateau can really make you lose your motivation to train. That's why it's so important to have a why. And that why needs to be better than just look like a superhero. It needs to be, I enjoy this. I enjoy this lifestyle. I enjoy this grind. You need to have a why that keeps you going no matter what, even when all the hardest things hit you in life. You need a crazy, the next one. You need a crazy pre-workout to go to the gym. That's how you know you're stuck in a true plateau. This is very common. You hear people constantly saying, oh, I'm getting on this crazy pre-workout. This usually happens to people that are approaching a true plateau. They start to think and start to be in this phase, and this can happen too in a mini plateau too. If it's a younger person that doesn't know the only true ingredients that you need to have in the gym, and for those that don't know, it's in my book, but I'll tell you here too because I'm cool like that. The only ingredients you ever need is 5 grams of creatine every day, 6 grams of citrulline malate, and that's about it. And use some sodium too. I use 500 milligrams of sodium with that. That's all you need for the gym. And maybe a little in a cup of coffee, some caffeine, or some caffeine tablets if you don't like coffee. A little bit of caffeine goes a long way. But that's all you need to have a good workout in the gym. Any other thing you buy is a waste of money when it comes to pre-workouts. That's just the truth of it. It is, you don't need much. There are a few scientifically researched ingredients like creatine and citrulline malate that have been proven to enhance workouts. Other stuff though, not so much. If you're an endurance athlete, beta-alanine can help endurance athletes, but bodybuilders, beta-alanine, you only feel it if you go over 20 reps. That's the only time you'd ever feel beta-alanine, and very, very, very rarely does a bodybuilder ever train over 20 reps. So it's a waste of money. So crazy pre-workout. This is something that a lot of people in a true plateau or a mini plateau for that matter will fall into. They start thinking, oh, I need to try the newest pre-workout to go to the gym. Just that's a psychology thing usually, but it's often something people come to. You feel depressed about your physique. When you're in a true plateau, you just feel like you're stagnant. You're not improving. You start to get a depression associated with your physique. This is a bad thing to fall into. Never allow your physique to cause you to feel depressed. Never allow it. And the last one on this list, imagine this, you are bored. Being bored can also cause a true plateau. It's not just associated or correlated with mini plateaus, it's also with a true plateau. So, what can cause a true plateau? What are the root causes of a true plateau? First one is not eating enough, or macros are all out of whack. So, you know how I said don't worry about eating and just eat? You can do that. But also, there are some people that just won't eat enough calories if they do that. There are some people that I recommend track if you have a hard time eating food, because if you ask the normal hard gainer in the gym how much they eat, and they're a hard gainer, and you ask them how much they eat, they may say, well, I eat like this and this. I have sandwiches and a box of cereal, or not a box of cereal, bowl of cereal for breakfast, some eggs, and as they're telling you this, you calculate it out in your head, and it's like 1,900 calories, and they like, yeah, I eat so much food. This is the people that need to track macros, the people that don't eat enough food or don't know how many calories are in things. This is why I recommend everybody track for a little bit in their life to just figure out a basis of how much calories are in things, because just tracking for 6 months or even a year for that matter can teach you so much. And it's one reason why I tell people to do that, because once you can estimate things, you kind of know how much you're eating a day. Like for me right now, I don't track at all. I don't know. If I had to guess, it's probably around 3,200 calories. If I had to guess, which is fine for where I am at. That's a slight gain for me, maybe slightly out of maintenance for me. That's perfect for what my goals are at the moment. And that's just something you're going to have to find. But you need to find if you're eating enough. If you're not eating enough, though, that's going to really mess up your results and cause a true plateau. Food is everything. Food is power. Food is energy. And if you're not putting that into your body, enough of it, your workouts are going to lack. I mean, for instance, I'm going to think about this weekend, for example. This weekend, I was out spending time with family all weekend. I very rarely was at my house. So I was off my normal foods. I didn't eat any eggs all Saturday. And I just ate what was at my parents' house and whatnot. And I felt like I was eating a lot. I mean, we had these pizza sandwich things and cheesecake, and I felt like I was eating a bunch of food. But yesterday on Monday's workout, I felt a lot weaker than I did last week, and it wasn't because I was weaker in general. It was just because I didn't eat as much. When I'm at home on the weekends and I'm not out hanging out with people or my families, I usually know when I'm eating. I know how much to eat, and I make sure and get in enough food. I like to overeat on the weekends. That way my weekday workouts are awesome. That's personally something I've learned in time, is eat more on your rest days and less on your training days. That way you have more to just use on your training days, and your recovery is amazing then too. You feel awesome on Monday when you hit the gym with an extra stimulus of calories. But yesterday my workout, it was good. My chest workout was strong, but it wasn't the strongest. It was probably because I didn't have the amount of whole eggs I eat. I didn't have a whole pizza on Sunday night. There was just certain things that I usually do every weekend that allow me to have such power at the beginning of the week that I just didn't do. And that's something that just, not eating enough macros or not eating enough calories. And macros all out of whack. I want to cover this a little bit. So this isn't a huge deal. I tell people the main thing to worry about is always get, 1 gram to 1.25 grams per pound of body weight of protein a day. Make sure you're at least getting 0.45 grams of fat a day, maybe 0.4. Try not to let it go below 0.4 per gram per pound of body weight, and then fill the remaining calories in with carbs. But macros all out of whack. Say this would be for somebody taking in, only half a gram a pound of protein per pound. So if you weigh 120, just to do easy math here, if you weigh 120, you're very underweight. But if you weigh 120, for example, and you're only taking in 60 grams of protein, that would be macros all out of whack. I always recommend 1 gram per pound for protein. So if you weigh 185, you at least take in 185 grams of protein. I personally do 1.25. So for me, I weigh right around 160 to 165. I take in about 190 grams of protein. That's right around 1.25 grams per pound of my body weight of protein. And for fats, right now, I don't even know. I'm taking like 100 grams of fat. I might be over 0.5. on that. Maybe, but I'm just totally eating by feel. My body has wanted more fats lately, so I give it more fats. And I'm actually lower on the carbs. I'm only 320 grams of carbs. I usually, in the past, I've gone up to 400 grams or whatnot at these calories usually that I'm at, but lately I just haven't wanted as many carbs. I'm only around like 320 or even 300 grams of carbs for that matter. So it's something you're gonna have to play with, find the macros that work for you, but those are general guidelines for you. 1.25 grams of protein per pound body weight, 0.45 grams of fat, and then fill the remaining calories in with carbs or use carbs around your training. That's a good way to go about it for most people. Being in a calorie surplus too long. So you know how I said you're not eating enough? You might be eating too much now. So whenever you're in a calorie surplus, you have to keep an eye on this thing called insulin sensitivity. I covered the insulin sensitivity a lot in my testosterone podcast, but insulin sensitivity is a good thing. You want high insulin sensitivity. When you have high insulin sensitivity, you can eat anything in the world and not put on an ounce of fat because your body produces enough insulin. It does everything right. It doesn't store very much fat. It doesn't store as much carbohydrates as fat. It uses carbohydrates as glycogen, which is muscle energy. And it's a very good thing to have, insulin sensitivity. Now, this is something you have to remember, though. When you're in a calorie surplus for too long, you build up, you lose insulin sensitivity. So when you're in a calorie surplus, eating too many calories for too long of periods, your insulin sensitivity goes down and you put on more fat. This is why I recommend, bulking maybe for a year and a half and then doing a 4-month cut, because that way during that bulking phase, your 1.5 years of bulking, doing a 6-month cut will raise insulin sensitivity back again. This is something you're just going to have to play with for yourself. For me, I can be in a bulk for 2.5 years before my insulin sensitivity goes up. That's just because I have a really good metabolism. But for me, during COVID 2020, I leaned down a bit because I was approaching 3 years of bulking at that phase. I had been bulking from 2017 to 2020, and COVID happened, and I was like, you know what, this is the perfect time to do a cut. So I decided to cut and build my insulin sensitivity. And then I cut, leaned down pretty well, and I was real happy with my physique. And then I just went back into a surplus or maintenance first, and then a surplus. And I really haven't done a serious cut. I cut down for vacation. A Florida vacation a few months ago, I cut down for, but I only dieted for 4 weeks. And I got really lean. I got really lean in those 4 weeks. It was pretty crazy. That's a sign that my insulin sensitivity was still good. So honestly, bulking for a year and a half, my insulin sensitivity wasn't affected much. Insulin sensitivity, if you have more fat on you, your insulin sensitivity will be worse. So the more fat you have on you, the more worse your insulin sensitivity will be. The more leaner you are, the more food you can eat, the more higher your insulin sensitivity that is. Think about this as a sponge relative, relating to a sponge. You take a dry sponge and you soak it in a bucket with water. That sponge is going to soak up everything. That means that dry sponge has high insulin sensitivity. That dry sponge is lean. But what happens when you take a wet sponge and put it in water? It just gets more wet. That is bad insulin sensitivity. That is when you're in a calorie surplus for far too long and your insulin sensitivity goes low, and that's not a good thing. That's when you start putting on more fat easily and the sponge is already full of water already. That's a sign to dry out the sponge, get lean for a while, build up insulin sensitivity before going back into a bulking cycle. The next one is not taking a diet break. I love diet breaks. Diet breaks are when you just don't give a shit. You go out, get pizza, get ice cream, go off your diet for a while. And diet breaks are usually about a week long, maybe 2 weeks if you're really lean, but usually a week is good. You just basically eat exactly what you want for a whole week. Don't be stupid and binge eat. Don't be just binging calories and binge eat. That's not healthy. But take a break from your diet. Eat things that you usually don't eat but love to eat, or that you have loved to eat in your history. Pancakes, or one of my favorites when I do on a diet break is fried bologna and cheese sandwiches. I grew up with those, and those are just delicious. And I mean, I don't really take diet breaks nowadays. Nowadays, I just eat whatever I want. But back in the time when I was constantly trying to make progress and goals in certain things, I would schedule out diet breaks every now and then when I felt I needed them. Diet breaks can help you blow past a plateau. Because the excess of calories will make you want to train harder. That's why so many people during Thanksgiving will have some of their best workouts in the whole year. Most people break PRs. Most people deadlift and squat more than ever in the rest of the year around Thanksgiving. And the reason is because they just eat everything they want to on Thanksgiving. And a lot of people, the average amount of calories people eat on Thanksgiving is over 4,000. And that's over 4,000 in a day. And a lot of people just blow their training up around then. A lot of people, I've had clients that have just hit crazy PRs days after Thanksgiving, because if you're one of my clients, you know what I tell you during Thanksgiving. I tell you, just eat all the food, enjoy the holiday, eat all the food, because you're going to make the best progress. And that's one of the reasons diet breaks work so well. It's like a Thanksgiving. And just you feel awesome and motivated to get back to the gym, and you just kill shit. Getting comfortable with your training routines and never mixing it up. This can be, this was back in a mini plateau, but it also can be for a true plateau. If you've been doing the same split, the same training, for over a year or a year and a half, and not mixing it up at all, not throwing new things in, you're going to hit a true plateau. If your everyday leg workout is squats, leg extensions, leg curls, calf raises, and you're never mixing it up, never trying to work on a weakness, you're going to hit a true plateau. That's just going to happen. Not tracking weights lifted over total volume to improve over time. So this is something that powerlifters can really benefit from. Bodybuilders can too, but it's a little harder though, because tracking volume over time, is reps times sets times weight lifted. And that's how you improve over time. That's the root cause and the root correlation to how to build muscle over time, volume up over time. And when you're a power lifter, that's easy. If you bench 3 times a week, before I stopped powerlifting and before I blew out my back, I was benching 3 times a week. I was squatting 3 times a week too. Yeah, I was benching and squatting 3 times a week and deadlifting 2 times a week. And I would have days where I would go lighter and moderate and heavy. That's how I trained when I was a power lifter. Days where I would trade light, moderate, and heavy. And over time, I tracked my volume. So for instance, I would track my volume for squats for the week. I had 30,000 pounds of volume. And when I was approaching the meet before I blew out my disc, the meet literally 2 weeks before I had the meet, 2 weeks before I blew out my disc, I was squatting right around 30,000 pounds of squat volume every week. And that was a lot. It was around 30 to 35,000, somewhere in there. I don't think it was quite 40,000 pounds of volume, but I know it was at least 30,000 because I was in a very hard training cycle. Everything felt heavy as hell, the way it should before a meet. It was a lot of volume building up to that meet. That is something I tracked over time, and if I would have ever done that meet, if I wouldn't have blown out my back, I would have resensitized myself. I would have lowered volume then. So after the meet was over, I would have went back down to maybe 15,000 pounds of volume, cut my total pounds of volume in half. So instead of 30,000 pounds of volume, cut it down to 15,000 pounds of volume for the week, and redid and rebuilt up and did more hypertrophy and cycled it. That's something you're just going to have to play with over time. Tracking weights lifted or total volume to improve over time. Just make sure you're not lifting the same weights all the time, and try to improve on that, what you're doing on exercises, and you'll improve. You'll break past plateaus. You'll break past a true plateau at that point. And the last one on this little list is training is no longer a stimulus. So this kind of goes with the last one, not tracking weight lifted or volume. If you're just going through the motions, and your training is no longer a stimulus to get better, remember, the muscle will only grow when it's told to get bigger. The muscle will not want to grow unless it's told to get bigger. The only reason muscle grows in the first place is to protect your body, your physical body, from not dying. When you lift a lot of weight, and when you get stronger, and when you build muscle, your body adapts to that because your body's like, I don't want to die. I'm going to force myself to grow more so I don't die under these weights. So if your training is no longer a stimulus to your body to want to grow anymore, if you're no longer challenging yourself, if you're just going through the motions, it's no longer going to be a stimulus for your body to grow in the first place. That's just something to keep in mind. So how do we get out of a true plateau? There are 4 things that you have to remember that affect your physique. And I call this the healthy jacked square. These 4 things are literally your training life. your bodybuilding life. And that is, number 1 is sleep. Number 2 is food. Number 3 is training. And number 4 is adequate recovery. So sleep is the foundation of everything. If you aren't getting good sleep, that is the number 1 thing to fix. Food is the number 2 thing. Food is fuel. Food is energy. It is the calories that keep us alive, the calories that fuel us. It's a foundational block. 3 is training. You need to have adequate training. You need to have an adequate stimulus to make your body want to change. And number 4 is adequate recovery. Your body, contrary to popular belief, does not grow in the gym. Yes, it gets pumped in the gym, but it grows out of the gym. It grows on your rest days. That's why I recommend people have 2 rest days a week at least. If you want to try 3, you can try it. I found the best results with 2 rest days. But adequate recovery is so important. People think that they can just train every day and they're getting enough recovery out of the gym. That's not the case. When I started focusing on more recovery, I grew again. This was something that blew me out of a true plateau back in 2017. Because I was training 6 days a week, and once I started resting on the weekends and I lowered my frequency on everything and just trained everything once a week except arms, then my body just grew again. It was pretty amazing. Adequate recovery, the number 4th foundational block. So sleep, food, training, and adequate recovery. Those are 4 things that you have to remember when you're programming a training block, training season. Anytime you're thinking about training, those 4 things need to be in high consideration. So, the next is, after we understand that though, we need to figure out the rest, how we can go about this. So, the next one is track your calories again. I say again. So, let's say you're in a true plateau and you're trying to make progress and you're just stuck. I recommend tracking your calories again for another week. Track them for a week just to see how many calories you're getting, just to make sure you're getting enough protein, carbs, fats. You would not believe the people that get off tracking and they just kind of don't eat enough protein, they're not eating enough carbs, and then when they track for a week, they're like, oh shit, I've been eating way too much fat, not enough protein, and my carbs are really low. No wonder my training sucks. Just track your calories again for a week. Make sure you're on the right track. The next one is either up your calories or lower, depending on the side that you're on, or might want to try the opposite. So this is kind of confusing, but if you are in a calorie surplus, and you've been in a calorie surplus and you're not making progress, go on a cutting cycle for 4-6 weeks. Lower your calories. Try that. Just see how you respond. And if you've been in a calorie deficit for too long, you've been cutting too long, start upping your calories. Just try the opposite one of what you're on, because this literally, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you are not making progress on a lot of calories, try taking away calories. If you're not on a lot of calories, try adding calories. Play with it. And don't fall into insanity. Switch from a strength cycle to a hypertrophy cycle, or vice versa, 6 months a cycle. Just for those of you that don't know, hypertrophy is muscle growth. So anytime I say that word hypertrophy, I am relating to muscle growth. Now, there are differences between strength cycles and hypertrophy cycles. When I used to powerlift, for example, my workouts looked a lot different than they do now. For example, a powerlifting program for me was, Monday was squats, benches, and deadlifts. Tuesday was an accessory day. Wednesday was benching and squatting with some leg accessories. Thursday was a rest day. And Friday was a bench and a deadlift day with some upper body accessories. And then I think I took the weekend off. I squatted on Saturday. So 3 squat days and 3 bench days and 2 deadlift days. That's what my powerlifting was. That was a strength cycle. That was trying to get stronger in the main lifts. Hypertrophy, though, think about what I'm doing now. Chest Mondays, Tuesday legs, Wednesday shoulders and arms, Thursday back day, Friday arm day. Totally different, but they both work for different goals. If you're in a strength cycle and you've plateaued, switch to a hypertrophy cycle for a while and focus strictly on hypertrophy and building muscle. And each of these cycles should be 6 to 8 months long. Don't just do this for like a few months and call it good. Donate a good 6 to 8 months of a strength cycle before going back to a hypertrophy cycle. Or if you've been in a hypertrophy cycle, go to a strength cycle. It just depends, mix it up. Whatever one you're doing that you've plateaued on, flip it. Mix it up. take a break from the main movements and just do hypertrophy for a while. Or if you're in a hypertrophy phase and you've plateaued there, try a strength cycle. You would be amazed. When I first went to a strength cycle from hypertrophy, so I started powerlifting in 2012. Before then, I was doing hypertrophy. When I jumped to a strength cycle, I grew actually in that strength cycle because it was a new stimulus. I had new motivation. It was pretty amazing. My back thickness went through the roof on a powerlifting cycle. So it's one of the things I miss that I can't powerlift anymore due to my discs. I wish I could go back to a strength cycle. I would love to do a 6-month strength cycle and just see how much thickness and density I could build, but I can't do it. My back just won't hold up to that. My joints can't hold up to that nowadays. I'm in a hypertrophy cycle. But if you are healthy though, try a strength cycle. You might be amazed how much progress you can make on a strength cycle. And if you need a good coach for programming a good strength cycle, I do it for a living. I'm not that expensive. Just email me and we can set up a consultation and I can program a strength cycle for you. So the next one is up your frequency on a muscle that needs more attention, weak points. So if your side delts are lagging, you do more side laterals during the week. On a chest day, you might throw some side laterals in at the end of the workout. On an arm day, you might throw some side laterals in. Just do a little bit more frequency on a muscle that needs more attention. When I was younger, my back, I always wanted to have a bigger back. And it wasn't until I started forcing myself in the early days, I put a pull-up bar by my bathroom. So every time I went to the bathroom during the day, and I would drink a lot of water too, I would have to do pull-ups, and I'd have to do as many as possible. So for me, I wanted to improve that over time, the frequency of that muscle, so I put more tension to it. The back was a weak point at one point for me. Now my back is my strongest muscle. It's absolutely crazy how much my back has improved in all the years, but it's probably due to the higher frequency of back that I have added over the years. I train back one time a week nowadays, but there was one time I was training back almost every other day, just to build up frequency on that. Upping your frequency on a muscle that needs more attention can help. Same with arms. Arms, I train 3 times a week, but it varies. You know, when I was younger, it was something I always wanted. I always wanted big arms. I'm a small dude, but I have good size arms. And when you're a small dude, if you have bigger arms, you look like a superhero. That was something I knew that I wanted. So I just added more frequency to my arms. Did more arms more often. Try more higher frequency on the muscle that you need more attention, and it will grow probably over time. Because when you're upping your frequency, your volume's also going up. Remember that. So lower frequency and rest more. Allow the muscle to actually grow. So this is kind of funny because I used to train back almost every other day. I would do, when I trained chest, I would superset it with back, so I'd have more of that back volume. And I did this for a long time. It wasn't till 2018 when I started training, chest having its own day, back having its own day. When I found, though, after a while, I started to plateau with all that frequency of back. And when I switched to just one back day a week and my frequency went down, my back exploded in growth. The pictures are crazy. My pictures from 2016 to 2020, my back doesn't even look like the same person. My back looks completely different. It has areas on my back that I didn't even know I could develop. And I trained back less often. So if you're plateauing with a muscle, try training at lower frequency even. You might be amazed how much it grows. Chest is also something I feel has improved a lot for me since I've actually been training it only one time a week. Mess with it. You might be amazed. Lower frequency might be a good thing for you. Because remember, the muscle grows out of the gym. So if you're constantly breaking down the muscle in the gym, say if you're training back, constantly breaking it down and never allowing it to grow, it's going to be not allowing it to grow. It's something to think about, Remember, your muscles grow out of the gym, not in the gym. In the gym, you're breaking down muscle tissue. Out of the gym, you're allowing it to grow. So if you're constantly breaking down muscle tissue, how is it ever going to grow? Just something to think about. The next one is weak and awkward position training. I talked about Mike O'Hearn. One of the reasons Mike O'Hearn is such a role model for me is he taught me the importance of focusing on awkward position training. He does a lot of awkward stuff in his training. Squats that look very awkward, or he throws this stuff in because he wants to strengthen weakened or weak joints and weak muscle tissue that don't usually get touched. For example, doing upright rows and allowing your hands to go all the way over your shoulders. Most people would say you're going to impinge your shoulder. Mike O'Hearn says you're a snowflake. And I have to agree with Mike O'Hearn, because I used to be one of those people that said, oh, you can't do upright rows moving your arms above your shoulders because they impinge them. And when I started doing those and building up the strength, I found my shoulders got awesomely strong, like superhero strong for different movements that used to be weak. I found my rear delts exploded in growth. When I started doing awkward positions in my training, my body changed completely. It's absolutely phenomenal what can happen when you put your body in awkward motions while training. Think about it. When you put yourself in a weak, awkward position, if you get strong in that weak position, you're going to get extremely strong in the strong position. That's why it's so beneficial to put yourself in weak position during training at times. Maybe not all the time, but occasionally. I think it's a great thing. I think it can really help a person. Next one is blood flow restriction training. So if you know me and you've read my book, I talk a lot about blood flow restriction training and how I added inches to my arms when I was doing it from the years of after I blew my disc out of my back. I had to find a way to keep going training. I did a lot of blood flow restriction training. And instead of my arms shrinking when I was restricted on what I could do training, my arms grew. My arms grew probably over 1.5 inches from doing blood flow restriction training 3-4 times a week. And it's something you can try. You can throw it in and see if you've hit a true plateau. Blood flow restriction training possibly can work. I don't want to talk much about it here, but you can either pick up my book or look up Jeremy Lenicky. He was the original founder not original founder, but original researcher that brought it to America. This was originally done back in Russia, and it was something that they used for a long time. Russia was the foundation of blood flow restriction training. But later on, it was brought into America when the major research from Jeremy Lenicky came out on improving muscle growth and helping muscle growth through a recovery time too. You can look up the research on that. He talks all about it, how to do it. Discussion for another day though. The next one is do a deload week or month. If you have my book, I talk about how to do a deload week or month too. Just basically take time off of your hard training and do easier training, or take time off completely. I have seen benefits from doing deloads where I will take a whole week off of training. I don't do that very often. I maybe do that one time every 6 years because I need the gym for my mentality and for my mental ability. But it can be beneficial. If you're in a really hard plateau that just won't break, doing a week or a month backing off your hard training might be beneficial. Just to back off. Find some new, strong, jacked people to train with. We talked about this already. If you train with stronger people than you, you're going to improve. There's no doubt about it. Increase your rest time between sets or train with more people. Talked already about this. When you increase your rest time between sets or if you just are forced to train with more people, you rest between more sets longer by default. You're able to push harder, make more progress, your volume goes up over time. Just something to try. Next is track sleep quality. Sleep quality, I talked about in my testosterone podcast a lot, how the benefits of sleep are crazy. When your sleep is good, everything else in life is good. Do everything you can to improve sleep quality. To sum up from that podcast, make sure you're using dark curtains in your room to block out any extra light. Do not have a TV on in your room. Have a fan going. Try to use a static sound generator on your phone. Sleep Cycle app on your phone, on the Apple iPhone, has a great one to make it sound like rain. Try sleeping naked. That will improve your sleep quality greatly, and also your testosterone greatly. Warm showers before bed also help you sleep better, improve sleep quality. All these little things can improve sleep quality. Find other hobbies beside the gym. So let me tell you a story. After I blew out my discs back in 2015 and I could no longer power lift, I was ruined. I went through this mental depression, not what to do in my life, because I was pretty strong for my size. I was in the 130 pound weight class with a deadlift of 375, a squat over 300, and a bench over 200 at a body weight of 130. So that was really good. I was motivated because I was, for my size, very, very damn strong. So when I blew out my discs and I no longer could powerlift, no longer identify being a powerlifter, I didn't know what to freaking do in my life. And to that time up to then, if you know from my origin story, if you've listened to that podcast, you knew that powerlifting had become such a huge part of my life that I just threw everything I had at it. My whole mentality was at powerlifting to make myself better, to make myself stronger. So when I could no longer powerlift, I was ruined. I didn't know what to do. Luckily, though, I fell back into old good habits of mine. I fell back into video gaming. That's when a friend of mine at work told me how good The Witcher 3 was, The Witcher Wild Hunt. And I was like, I haven't played video games in forever. I guess I can try it. And I'm so glad I played that video game because that game made me realize how much I loved video gaming. And I had other hobbies beside the gym. When I could no longer lift like I was forced to try other things. I was forced to do other things. And I found my love for gaming again. I found how much I enjoyed it, how much it helped with mentality and how much it could help with depression. And this is something that people need to find. If your only thing in life is the gym, you need to find other hobbies. You need to find other things that you're passionate about. For me, I talk a lot about the gym, but it's not my whole life. There's other things I love doing. I love playing video games. I love anime. I love watching tons of different anime and reviewing anime. It's something I find very, very fun. Watching movies. You got to find hobbies that you like. You got to find things that you really enjoy doing outside the gym, because if your only thing is the gym, remember what I talked about in the beginning of this podcast. I said if you do something too often, too much, and it's all you do, you're going to get tired of it and you're going to stop doing it. The same thing is with the gym. If the gym is your only thing in your life that you really, really care about, you need to find other things that you really care about as well. You can enjoy the gym and love the gym. I can't wait to train legs tonight with my buddies at the gym tonight. We're going to kill quads tonight. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. But at the same time, it's not my whole life. I'm also, excited to, chill out on the couch and watch anime tonight. I have other hobbies beside the gym, and that's something that you need to try to find. Try to find things that relate with you in life, things that you can find enjoyment in, and just explore. If you don't have any other hobbies, just try some things. Try drawing. You might find a love for art. You've never tried video games, try a good video game. If you've never tried anime, there's anime for everybody out there. Just try anime. Anime is such a huge part of my life. Just because of all the different genres out there. I love how there's a new anime every season. Like every season, there's just brand new anime to check out. It's just something to look forward to. Find things to look forward to in life. It's just something to try. The next one is rewatch something or play something that made you psyched to train in the first place. If you listen to my origin story, you know the whole reason I got into fitness was because I wanted to be a Dragon Ball Z character. I started lifting when I was 14 years old. I started doing push-ups and pull-ups and bench press and curls because I wanted to be a Dragon Ball Z character. I wanted to become a Super Saiyan. So for me, it was Dragon Ball Z that originally got me into lifting. It got a lot of men into lifting. I hear so many kids, that get into lifting just because they want to look good for a girl or whatnot. But the fact is, here's the sad truth, guys. And I think I mentioned this in last week's podcast or something. Girls are attracted to dad bods nowadays. It's pretty crazy. They aren't even attracted to jack dudes. If you have abs, chances are the girl's not even going to be attracted to you. So you have to have another why to want to be a superhero, because I'm single. I mean, I look like a superhero with my shirt off. I mean, with my hair down and my shirt off, I look like Thor. I mean, honestly speaking, I'm not trying to get prideful or talk high of myself. I have done this stuff for a long time, and I'm real happy with the way I look. But I'm single. I've been single most of my life. Girls don't care that you're super jacked. They want personality in a man. They want, and that's something I don't have. I don't have much personality. I mean, I have a pretty boring lifestyle. I mean, like I said, the gym's the most exciting part of my life, and I'm cool with that. And I've never found a girl to just settle down with me So if you're working out only in the gym to get girls, you got to find another reason, And one thing you can do is, try to watch something that remade you want to train. So the people that grew up in the 90s, like myself, we watched, anime and whatnot. That's what motivated us to train. And I think back to a time in 2000, let's see here, was it 2011? I had lost a job working at a newspaper in Napoleon, and I didn't know what to do. And I kind of went through depression then. Yeah, that's what it was. I went through a depression then, it was around 2011, and I needed to remotivate myself to train. So I rewatched the whole thing of Dragon Ball Z, the original Dragon Ball Z. I found the websites that had it on there, and I watched the whole thing, all the way past let's see here, the Buu Saga. I think the Buu Saga was one of the last ones. It's been so long. But I rewatched it back in 2011, and then I was remotivated again to kill shit. Just whatever motivated you to train in the first place, take yourself back to then. Maybe it was Star Wars. You wanted to be a Jedi or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing out things that maybe motivated you to train. If your only reason for training was to look good for girls, you have to find another reason, because, like I said, most women are not attracted to jack dudes. It's just the sad truth nowadays. It's just is what it is. So the next one is take off a few weeks of training or go on a trip. So maybe you just need to take a vacation, set some money aside and just leave and go on a trip. Sometimes you just need to get away to have yourself remotivated. And this can happen for business too. For me, sometimes it wasn't until I went on a trip or a vacation and came back that I was remotivated to work back on my business again. Just something to try. And then the last one here is you may have hit a genetic top. Now, a genetic top, I said, happens around, 7 years, some people 10 years, but most people hit their genetic top around 7 to 10 years. That does not mean you can't improve. It just means your improvement becomes very minimal. For example, I don't make much progress anymore. For me, it would take such focus for me to make progress again. It would take me going into all the way up to 4,000 calories a day. It would take me having to train every muscle group 2 times a week. It would probably take me having to go back to 6 days a week training to blow past my genetic potential. Everybody in my family is small. My dad was small. My mom is small. I'm just a small dude. Okay. And I've learned to live with that. I've learned that I have probably hit my genetic top. It's not to say I can't improve. Like I said, from 2017 to 2020, I took my back to another level. I literally blew past another genetic potential that I had. So saying your genetics is a top, that you can no longer improve, what's the point anymore? That's stupid to say that. You can always try to improve. You can always improve a little bit here and there. I'm just saying, though, there is a point in your journey where you will feel like you're not making any more progress. And that point will hit you eventually. 7 to 10 years in, it will hit you eventually. And that's when a lot of people jump on steroids, if they choose to do that. But knowing a genetic top, you could be approaching a genetic top. That might be something that might be stopping your progress from continuing. Okay, so I know we are at already 1 hour and 37 minutes, but we're going to go right into the Instagram Q&A. Like I said, this is going to be a longer podcast, guys. Hope you are enjoying this. Hope I am not boring you or putting you to sleep. But yes, so this Instagram Q&A I posted out the other day for questions that people had for how to break a plateau. And I gave you guys a good 24 hours to give me questions. And I got four, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 or 6 questions. So it wasn't a ton of questions I got, but I feel like I covered a lot of things today that will help people. So I'm going to go into these 5 questions pretty deep, just to make sure I answer them. So the first one is how to get out of a bench plateau. Now, I talked a little bit about this. When you're powerlifting, when you're trying to get better at a movement, you need to do the movement more often. But you need to also realize what you're doing at the time. So for example, if you're only benching 1 time a week and you've hit a bench plateau, you can play with that. Now you have room to up it to 2 days a week. Try 2 days a week for a while. And don't do heavy each day either. Too many people do a movement the same. Like when I used to powerlift, Monday was my light day, Wednesday was my moderate day, and Friday was my heavy day, meaning that I would do more reps, like 4 sets of 12 on Monday. I would do like 3 sets of 7 on Wednesday, and then I would do like 3 sets of 3 on Friday. Program through the week based on what you're trying to do. So if you're benching 2 times a week, do a heavy day and a light day. If you're benching 3 times a week, do a heavy, light, and moderate day. And you shouldn't be benching 4 times a week. I believe 4 times a week would be overkill. But maybe on occasion you could try 4 times a week just for a couple weeks to try to blow yourself out of bench plateau. But mainly, 2 to 3 times a week, 3 times a week would be really good to get yourself out of a bench plateau. Another thing you can try is speed work with bands or chains. Speed work is 6 sets of 3. So with about 70% of your 1 rep max. So do the math. If your bench is around 300 pounds, do 60% of that for 6 sets of 3 reps with about 1 minute rest in between. And speed work, what your job is to move the weight as fast as possible. So don't do them slow. The reps should be super explosive. Speed work can help you get out of a bench plateau. It has helped me in the past when I used to power lift. It can be substituted for a good light day. So how I said, Monday was light day, Wednesday was moderate day, and Friday was heavy day. The Monday could also be a speed work day too. So instead of that 4 sets of 12, you could have done 4 sets of 6 or 6 sets of 3 with 60% of your 1 rep max, or 60 to 70% of your 1 rep max. I sometimes will go up to 70% just because 60% felt really, really light. But 70% is also fine. So that's a really one good way to get out of a bench plateau. One way with nutrition wise is bloat yourself before going into a bench session. I would use this technique. Mark Bell came up with this technique, eating a bagel with a glass of milk before you go train bench. Just basically a lot of carbs before you go bench. That's all he was saying. You don't have to do a bagel and a glass of milk. It was just, make sure you're bloated when you bench. When you have a little bit of bloat, you're always going to push more weight. So maybe make sure your pre-workout has a bagel in it. A bagel has a lot of carbs, or, a Pop-Tart, for example, has a lot of carbs. Something that has a lot of carbs, try it right before benching, and you might be amazed with how much more you can bench. That's a little nutritional thing that might help. And the other thing is maybe just backing off bench for a while. Like I said, back off bench and go on hypertrophy phase and just build up the chest more, and then come back to bench later on, like maybe 3 months later, come back to bench and see where you're at. You'll probably be a tad weaker, but maybe you'll blow past that plateau when you build your strength back up. So next one is, I cannot put on any more weight no matter how much I eat. Oh my gosh, I've heard this one so much, so often. My advice is track what you eat for 2 weeks, and chances are you are in a deficit. That's all there is to it. Most people don't eat nearly as much as they say they do. They say they're eating 3,000 calories when they're probably only eating 1,900. People have no idea how hard it is to eat over 3,000 calories of, steak, eggs, more whole foods. Yeah, you could eat pizzas and whatnot too and get your calories up. But if you're like me and you like to eat, a lot of whole foods, people have no idea how much food that is to get to that 3,000, 3,500 calorie level, where most people need to be to put on weight. And if you're a really high endurance athlete, you need to put on even more. If you do a lot of sports, for example, a lot of high school kids, you need to take your calories up to 4,000 to 5,000. I've had clients I've had to put on 6,000 calories before that are in high school before, because they couldn't put on muscle until they got to 6,000 calories. You just have to, eat more. That's all there's to it. There is no such thing as a hard gainer. People will say there's a hard gainer. And this is coming from a hard gainer myself. I put on weight very, very hard. Very hard for me to put on weight. And I don't even call myself a hard gainer, because the definition of hard gainer does not exist. It is, you just don't eat enough food. So if you're not gaining weight, just eat more food until you gain. It's that easy. Start throwing in, pizzas and stuff like that if you have to. It's fine. Especially when you're young. Do it. Next one is, I'm doing an hour of cardio every day and weight is not falling off. Well, chances are you have adapted to that much cardio. What have I told you? I have told you many times through all my podcasts how the body adapts. If you do something enough, your body adapts to it. So if you're doing an hour of cardio every day, Well, now your body has adapted to that hour. Now you have to do more than an hour. That's why I always start and do the least amount of work as possible and still get better. Because if you always follow that rule that I give you, do the least amount of work as possible and still get better. And that's not my rule that I came up with. All the credit goes to Mike O'Hearn. Mike O'Hearn lives by that rule. He always did the least amount of work as possible to get better over time. I have adapted that into my own training, and I teach people that same thing. I pay it forward from what I learned from him. But that goes for cardio too. Do not start out with an hour of cardio every day when you're trying to lose weight. Start out with 20 minutes 3 times a week, and you can always up it over time. Think of cardio as a tool in the tool belt. You're not going to use all your tools all at once to get a goal done, because what happens when you run out of tools? There are no more tools. You're having to do 4 hours of cardio every day to lose weight, or even worse, maintain weight. I've had clients that have screwed their metabolism up with that, and I've had to fix that. So the point is to always do the least amount of cardio as possible while still having weight fall off. If you're doing an hour of cardio every day, I want you to stop doing cardio altogether for a whole entire month. And then I want you to start doing it 3 times a week, 20 minutes each day of those. 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day. Okay? That's what I want you to do. If you are truly doing an hour of cardio every single weekday, or every single day, according to your question, you need to take off cardio altogether. Stop doing cardio altogether. Resensitize yourself to it. And then a month later, start doing it 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day. And then you can always up it over time. You'll be amazed probably with what your body will do though. Because when you get off cardio, it'll adapt to that. And then you might put on some weight. I'm not going to lie. If you're doing an hour of cardio every day, you're probably going to put on some weight when you get off that hour. Push through for a whole month, keep doing your weight training, and then after a month, adding cardio 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day. I think you'll be amazed. Tricep growth has stalled. Any recommendations? Okay, so tricep growth, some things that help me progress through a tricep plateau is do tricep movements that I was weak at. Any tricep movements that you're super weak at, throw those in and do them more often. Also, pin presses helped me blow past plateaus and helped me have a lot thicker triceps. Pin presses helped. Let's see here. Reverse grip bench press helped. That's straight from Mike O'Hearn as well. Close grip bench presses helped. Tate presses helped, where you grab a barbell, hands about shoulder width apart, and elbows are flared out toward the walls of the room. Those really helped put on a lot of mass on my triceps. One arm behind the head dumbbell extensions. Those I feel are very beneficial for the meaty part of the tricep, the big long head of the tricep. Just try some different movements. You might want to look up John Meadows on YouTube. He passed away not too long ago, but he has all his videos still up on YouTube. I learned a lot of tricep things from him. He has huge arms, absolutely he had gigantic arms. R.I.P. John Meadows, you will be missed. But he had huge arms, and he was somebody I learned a lot of arm techniques from. So you could try John Meadows' YouTube and try some of his techniques. He loved pin presses. He said a lot of his growth from triceps came from pin presses. Just something to try. The last one here I guess I have is how to beat a mental plateau. So mental plateaus happen when you start getting strong at a movement and you just can't, you put a certain amount of weight. Let's use squat, for example. This will be the best way to show this. So people who squat consistently and try to get stronger know exactly what I'm talking about. They get their minds attached to certain plates. So for example, they get 2 plates, fine. 2 plates and a quarter, fine. But you put on 3 plates, and it's a mental battle for some people. That's 315. That's 3 plates. It's a mental battle. Even though they squatted 290 with no problem, why is 315 going to be so much harder? It's not because you don't have the strength. It's because it's a mental plateau. I know this because I struggled this when I used to powerlift. And this was anytime I got over 200 pounds on bench, I started having this mental plateau where I just missed the weight, not because of strength, not because of technique, but because of mental battles. And I wasn't able to improve it until I learned about a trick called overloading the bar without reps. Overloading the bar without reps is what I have most people do to blow past a mental plateau. So how do you do this? let's say, for example, your max squat is 315 pounds. Now you don't do this on a light day. You only would do this on your heavy squat day. So let's say your max is 315 pounds. You've never squatted more than 315. And you always find that mental battle at 3 plates. You put 3 plates on, everything after that starts to feel like a mental battle. What I want you to do on your next heavy day is build up to 3 plates, squat 3 plates normal, and then I want you to put a 25 or a 35 pound plate on each side of the bar and walk it out. Stand there with the weight on your back for a good 10 seconds. 10 to 15 seconds, and then rack it again. And I want you to do that 3 more times. This is called heavy walkouts. Heavy walkouts have been used by powerlifters for decades. What they do is they acclimate your central nervous system, which is your brain power to how you lift a weight. It's why sometimes some weights feel lighter and some weights feel heavier. Your central nervous system is behind that. And doing a heavy walkout with that heavier upped weight will allow you to mentally get past that. So when you go back to, say, 315, then 315 feels light. You can rep it out. So I recommend doing that for a good, 4-6 weeks. Put on a good, I'm going to say 100 pounds to 120 pounds more than what you would actually squat with, and walk it out. Make sure and stay tight. I've seen people get injured on walkouts because they don't stay tight. They don't treat it like a normal rep. Treat everything like a normal rep. Just don't squat the weight. And you'll be amazed how your brain will adapt to that weight, and it will be like, oh my gosh, I can do this now. Like if you squat 400 right now, put on 485, or even maybe get it closer to 500 and just stand there with the weight on your back. I think you're going to be amazed. Over time, that's going to train your mind to blow past that feeling. And over time, then, your brain will be like, wow, I can actually squat this. This actually doesn't feel that bad. So I recommend doing that. Try it. Try it out. I think you'll be amazed with how much that can help you beat a mental plateau. You can do it on bench, too. You can do heavy bench. Just unrack the weight. Maybe have a spotter lift the weight out to you because you don't want to mess up a shoulder or anything trying to unload a weight that you're not used to. But let's say you benched, 250, put on 315 on the bar and help a spotter get it out for you and just hold 315 there for a good 10 to 15 seconds. Honestly speaking, if you get it for over 10 seconds holding it, that's incredible. on a bench especially. That's a lot of work to actually hold the weight out there. Some of the best benchers in history, Eric Lillibridge, for example, he was very well known for doing heavy walkouts and also heavy pull or what would that be called? Heavy push-outs on a bench. Deadlifts. Honestly speaking, on deadlifts, I don't really know what I would recommend for that to progress on. Maybe try like rack pulls. Do heavier rack pulls. Rack pulls, are off the rack, not off the ground, so you're not pulling the weight as far. You can usually do more weight on a rack pull. Just don't injure yourself. Don't go like 100 pounds heavier than your deadlift. Maybe only go 50 pounds heavier, 50, 60. Maybe that would help you. But the main thing is whenever you're having a mental plateau with something, it's usually associated to what you see on the bar. 4 plates looks really hard on a squat. But why can you squat 365 and not get 4 plates? It's not a strength thing. It's only like 40 pounds less than the 4 plates, the 405. It's not a strength thing. You have it in you. You can easily squat that 405. It's a mental battle though at that point. And a mental plateau is something that you just have to break through. If you're struggling with 365, throw on 485 and just walk it out. Stand there with it. Feel it on your back. Feel what that weight feels like. And when you're standing there, think too with your mind, this isn't that bad. I can conquer this weight. Just give it time. And it's all a mental battle. With time, you'll be able to tell yourself that and progress over time. So try that out. I think you're going to really benefit from that. Also, if you're having a plateau on squat in itself, try the same thing as I recommended with a bench plateau. Up your frequency. If you're only squatting 1 time a week, up it to 2 times a week. If you're only squatting 2 times a week, up it to 3 times a week. But don't go heavy on all those days. do a light day, a moderate day, and a heavy day, or a speed work day, a moderate day, and a heavy day. You should always have a moderate and a heavy day, but the light day can be interchanged with speed work, rep work, or just more hypertrophy work. But that's a good way to categorize it out. So try that out. I think you'll be amazed with what can happen for your squat progress. I was able, when I switched to that back in when I used to power lift, when I was squatting 3 times a week, I raised my squats all the way from 245 or 250 all the way to 305. 305 was my best ever squat, and that was at a body weight of 135. So you can do it. You can blow past mental plateaus. You just have to take time and have patience and realize it's more of a mental battle than it is an actual physical battle. So let's wrap this podcast up, guys. First thing is, plateaus suck. They happen to everybody, but they do suck. Just stay patient. Usually if you're in a plateau, you will break out of it eventually. There is a time for everything in life. Remember that. In fact, I do want to read this verse from the Bible because literally Solomon knew exactly what a plateau was. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. There is a time for everything, and a season for everything activity under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. And a time for war and a time for peace. I love that verse. It really makes you realize there's a time for everything in life. Life may not be good for you right now, but it's just the time that life you're in right now. Or you may be feeling really good in life, but realize and cherish it and glorify God to the highest and thank Him for the time that you're in. Plateaus, they're just because of impatience a lot of times. They're a lot of times just because people are impatient. We live in a civilization where we want everything now. Stop watching what steroid users are doing and stay in your lane. Don't worry about what the people on social media are doing. Just stick to your lane and stay in it. I've never been a large dude. I've always been a small dude. It's easy to get easy to look and see what other people my age and how big they've made it, how they're over 200 pounds and they're just massive beasts and they've been doing this for over 20 years and they're just ridiculous. I've learned to stay in my lane and I'm cool with being 160 pounds and looking jacked. Realize that your lane is the lane that you need to be focused on, not other people's lane. Realize that you may never really improve much more and be okay with it. Find a why that keeps you coming back to the gym that is not associated with how you look. Be the best you that you can be and forget about the rest. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what you've done in the past. Don't even worry if you've lost strength over time, or don't even worry about that you've lost muscle over time. Realize that in the moment, in the current moment that you are in, and be the best in that moment that you have, and be the best in that moment that you are given. Don't worry about the rest. Give it your all for your training, and don't think back what you should have done and accept the moment. Don't worry about what you could have done for something or what you should have done. Realize that you've done it, you've given it your all, and you accept the moment. Thank you guys for listening today. I hope you guys got something out of it. You can email me, fawzy14@gmail.com. I'll always respond to all your messages. If you haven't yet, pick my book up on Amazon, Waken the Warrior by Sean Fawzy. It will transform your life in more ways than one. There's a whole recipe to success in that book. It's only $30, helps me out a lot. I thank you guys for everybody that has helped me out by supporting me by buying a book or buying a program or being a client of mine. I thank you guys. It allows me to do this stuff and to give you all this information for free. So I thank you guys. Till next week, God bless and stay strong.